Good day to you and welcome back. Well, have you considered the importance of where the backspace and margin release keys are on your typewriters? Does it make a difference to you? Does one particular layout work better for you than another? Some of my machines, the backspace is on the right side of the keyboard, others it's on the left side of the keyboard. Let's talk about that, shall we? Stay tuned. Well, I've used enough different typewriters over the years that I can pretty well get used to just about any keyboard layout in terms of where the backspace is versus the margin release. However, there are times when I'm just typing, not thinking about it, and I all of a sudden notice that one particular layout seems to just work better, it flows better, it's less distracting than others. So I think what I'm going to do is first of all go through my collection here and make a census of what layouts do I have. How many typewriters put the backspace key on the right versus the left? And maybe does the tabulator key position matter? Probably not as much because not every typewriter has a tabulator function, key function. But I'm going to go through that. I'm going to kind of figure out what the majority of my machines are. And then I'm going to sit down and try to kind of do some testing and typing and see how I get along with it, which particular layout seems to work better for me. Optimus Super, backspace on the right. Olympia Splendid 33, backspace on the right. Royal KMM, backspace on the left. Royal Model 10, backspace on the left. Olympia Reporter, backspace on the right. Smith Corona Silent, backspace on the left. Underwood Portable, backspace and margin release on the left. Olympia SM3, backspace on the right. MJ Roy, backspace on the left. SCM Singer Electric, backspace on the left. Smith Corona Electric, backspace on the left. SCM Galaxy 12, backspace on the left. Smith Corona Silent Super, backspace on the left. Hermes 3000, backspace on the left. Hermes 3000, backspace on the left. Royal Quiet Deluxe, backspace on the left. Royal Mercury, backspace on the right. Groma Calibri, backspace on the right. Triumph Norm 6, backspace, written in Hungarian, on the right. Voss Portable, backspace on the right. And I have 5 thermal typewriters symbolized by this Canon TypeStar 4, all with backspace on the right. Nakajima made Olympia Report Electronic, backspace on the right. And finally, Keyboard Paradise 60% mechanical Cherry MX Brown switch keyboard for Mac or PC, backspace on the right. Well, I tabulated my results in my sketch journal here. So I have 18 Type Bar machines, both manual and electric. And of those 18, the backspace key is found on the left side on 2/3 of them and on the right side on only 1/3 of them. And the margin release key is slightly different because the Underwood Portable up here has both the margin release and the backspace on the left. So it's pretty close to a 2/3, 1/3 split for the margin release being on the right side. And then my thermal electronic typewriters, my daisy wheel electronic, and of course my computer keyboard all have the backspace on the right and the margin release on the left, ignoring the fact that the computer keyboard doesn't really have a margin release per se. So what's interesting is, at least in my particular typewriter collection, it seems like more of them, 2/3 of them, have the backspace on the left, which breaks the convention of the more modern keyboards where they gravitated to having the backspace on the right instead. And that is an interesting observation. My typewriter collection seems to be rather heavy with Smith Coronas and SCMs, but it seems like the American machines were predominantly backspace on the left throughout most of the manual typewriter era. Now, another thing I tried to figure out here is if the backspace position is an American versus an international convention. A lot of the American typewriter machines, of course, have the backspace on the left, but I noticed, for instance, the Optima Super, Olympias, Olympia Reporter, SM3 all have the backspace on the right, whereas the French-made Roy and both Hermes 3000s, both the Swiss-made and the French-made, have it on the left, and the Colibri is also on the right. So it looks like it's sort of fairly even split in the European typewriters between left and right. I don't have as many Japanese typewriters, actually only one, well, two, the Daisy Wheel Olympia, made by Nakajima, and the Royal Mercury, and they're both on the right. But it looks like the European typewriter is pretty evenly split. Well, we talked about this subject in last Sunday's Type Club Live meeting, and one person suggested that having the backspace on the left made sense because that's kind of the direction you're going to move your hand toward the carriage return lever, which moves the print position to the left like the backspace would. Another person suggested just the opposite, that since the carriage moves to the right in order to move the print position one space to the left, having the backspace on the right side made more sense. And the convention of a lot of machines like this Olympia Splendid 33 has the arrow pointing in the direction that the carriage moves for the backspace, not the direction that the print position moves for the backspace. So personally, my particular likes are, I tend to favor having the backspace on the right side. It just makes more sense. And that might be because if you are a prolific computer keyboardist, of course, you have the backspace up here above the return key, which is the equivalent of a carriage return. So maybe if you're used to modern computer keyboards, or let's say keyboards since the era of electronic keyboards like daisy wheel typewriters and thermal typewriters, having the backspace key predominantly on the right side kind of makes more sense, and it just makes it easier for us to travel back and forth between using both typewriters and computer keyboards and electronic typewriters as well. Well, as I said earlier, I can get used to having the backspace on either side of the keyboard, depending on how often I use the machine. But I do tend to more naturally gravitate toward using it or preferring it on the right side. And as I said earlier, it's probably because modern electronic keyboards are configured that way. But it is interesting, the number of machines out there, if my collection is a fair sampling of them, that is, the number of machines that came out throughout the history of the typewriter that had the backspace on the left. And obviously, there were decisions made in the design of those typewriters where they decided that it would be superior to have them on the left, or maybe there was some kind of a regional convention that they were trying to adhere to. But it is interesting, but I'd like to hear your views or your opinions about it. Which do you prefer? Do you like having the backspace on the right or on the left? Leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. In any event, regardless of which side the backspace is on, what's really important is that we keep using these wonderful machines. And so I encourage you, stay creative, keep writing, do good work, and have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye for now.